Why do you like making games more than playing them?
Creative outlet mostly. I like building things, creating something out of absolutely nothing, and that's why I got into games, so that I can make whatever I want to make and make it exist into the world.
Design philosophies or trends that usually signal to you that it's a well-made game.
Player responses. The only way to actively judge how well a game is designed is to play test it. Put it in front of 10 people and all of them don't really have the reaction that you were hoping for or are not having a good time at all. It's not a good game. So just play testing the game and gauging the reaction of players is the only way to do it.
How did you start making games? On what platform and at what age?
I was a freshman in high school and the platform was a TI-83 calculator. I was just like bored in study hall and like we didn't have laptops at the time. Everyone in the school had like this little graphing calculator that had programming functionality, and you could go into other games. Like if there's like a Pac-Man game, you could like kind of see the code. And I'm like, well, what if I change this number? Oh, it goes twice as fast. And from there, I kind of completely taught myself how to program just from reverse engineering the code from other games and like I guess modding them by changing a line or two, until I was able to just make my own games and on this little calculator because I was bored in study hall. Before I learned how to program, I was just making card games or variations of chess or whatever. But then once I learned how to make video games, I was always doing it compulsively, and so I've always been a hobbyist in that way. And so starting the bridge, it was no different. I wasn't really selling games before that, not really. And halfway through making the bridge, I realized, actually, this is something that people were paying attention to. I'm getting emails from Steam back in 2011, which was a big deal back then. I need to pay attention to this. Then I launched it on Steam, and the rest is history.
How supportive were your parents and teachers of this career path?
Well, as soon as the ultrasound showed that I was a boy, my dad went out and bought a Nintendo Entertainment System. So it's maybe a little sexist gesture, but still, I was born with Super Mario before I could talk or walk, and very supportive. I mean, I went to school for computer science, and they helped me out there, and otherwise, like I started out by working at Microsoft on Xbox, and so they're supportive of that. The biggest leap was like, oh, I'm gonna leave my six-figure Microsoft job to be indie. They're like, oh, okay. And that's when I showed them Indie Game the movie and like Phil Fish talking about killing himself, and they're like, oh my god, whatever. But yeah, it all worked out.
Did it work? Did the Indie Game the movie work actually?
Did it work to
convince your parents?
Oh no, it scared the hell out of them. I should not have showed them that movie.
Okay.
I mean, I launched the bridge while at Microsoft, and by the time I left Microsoft, I was making more from that game than I was at Microsoft, so that was fortunate, and I was in a fortunate position to be able to just comfortably leave. I know a lot of people probably are not in that situation. A lot of indies take a lot more risk than I ever have, and I respect the hell out of them for that. I guess my risk was during Microsoft, I threw away all of my sleep and social life to work 2 40-hour-a-week jobs, if not kind of more than that, to make the bridge at the same time that I was, making Xbox. It was still a hobby. It was an obsession. So if that didn't work out, whatever, I still had my cushy job at Microsoft, but it didn't. So I was pretty fortunate in that way. I could just comfortably leave.
On that note, congrats on your feature in Forbes.
Thank you.
What's it like being in Forbes? Like,
it's a bit surreal still to be the top 30 under the age of 30 in the world at something, which is, there's a lot of people in the world, a lot of people making indie games, or games in general, or, I mean, it's not just, I think like 9 people in 30 under 30 were actually making games. Everyone else was like a streamer or like a part of a platform or something. But anyway, it's, yeah, it's just really cool. I'm still kind of figuring out what the implications to it actually mean, but just a lot of people saying congratulations at this point, but it's surreal. It's cool. It's been a I guess a goal of mine, because I have so many friends over the years who have made their 30 under 30. I'm just like, I should be in there. I don't know. It actually happened. So.
And so you've been a part of the Seattle Indies community, you were saying, since 2011-ish. Yeah. What do you enjoy most about the community?
Just the meetups, the socials that we have every month. I've made so many friends at Seattle Indies. I moved to Seattle in 2011 not knowing anybody, and so like the first thing I did was look online for like game developer communities, and I found I don't even really know if we were called Seattle Indies at the time. It's just kind of like a group of people who hung out in 17-Bit's office in SOTO and BYOB events. And I've made almost all of my friends are from Seattle Indies that I've made over the last 7 years. And that's by far my favorite part. Yeah, Seattle Indies have just been adding so many events, just like what you said, or just the support groups. The show and tells, Seattle Indies Expo has exploded. The holiday party has exploded. The socials have exploded. Like everything is growing. I think it's a combination of people realizing these are some pretty cool events that we want to come out to, and so they're coming month over month. And just the population of game developers in Seattle growing as well, which also makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just over the years, I've met so many people at our events. So many good business connections. Every Seattle Indies, there's people there like that. Like I often see representatives from Nintendo and Valve and Microsoft there.
Networking's really what it's all about, really.
Absolutely. It's so helpful. Well, 6 is, I think, a great way to practice exhibiting. Like it's not at the scale of the mega booth, for example, and so there's not as much pressure. You're not necessarily talking to the IGN and Polygons of the world. You're talking to the smaller. I mean, you might be talking to IGN and Sex, I don't know, but the point is, like, it's a great way to practice demoing if you've never done it before. Also, it's a great way to get feedback, so you can really sharpen the game and get it really ready for the big leagues of the mega booth or something like that.
To other people that want to get involved and volunteer for the Seattle Indies, how do you recommend they go about doing that?
There's probably no limit to the amount of help Seattle Indies can get. It's just a completely volunteer and organizer-driven organization. Anyone can be an organizer, so just reach out to any of us. I think contact@seattleiindies.org or something like that, or just message any of us on Facebook, or just talk to us at an event, and we'll get someone started if they're very seriously interested in helping out.
We're also happy to hear that now you're a member of the Seattle Indies board.
Just having my input and having over what the events are, just kind of helping oil the machine, kind of at a more executive director level. I've been an organizer for a while now, and just kind of want to put especially with some of our other board members, like either stepping down or moving to Vancouver or something. It's kind of, I wanted to step up and kind of fill that gap and just help out with the events more. I want to get more attendance at all of our events. It'd be great if 6 could grow. But no, we have a pretty awesome venue right now. I kind of want to keep things about as it's going, just bringing people together and giving everyone as much opportunities as they can to grow as an independent developer. Like we all know, typically being an indie developer is hard, and Seattle Indies' mission is just to make that easier for people here.
What are your work habits, specifically your day-to-day?
I'm the kind of person who is most productive in the mornings. Like my productivity is like super high in the mornings and it just goes down and down and down and down. So in the evenings I try not to work because it's not going to be as effective. But otherwise my work schedule is any time I'm not doing something else. And so I definitely try to prioritize like having a social life or like getting out of the house and doing something over work. And if I have the opportunity to do that, I will. But if I don't idle. I don't like just sit around and watch TV typically. I'm like, I can be doing something with a game I'm working on. Totally busy social week, that might not work that much, but if I don't, I might work a lot, and I'll just be comfortable either way.
Like, what are your favorite events that you kind of make a point of going to every year, other than GDC and the Seattle Indies events?
Well, other than the GDC and the Seattle Indies events, PAX is, of course, a great event. Basically, any event I go to is for the people rather than the content of the event. I don't even go to GDC talks anymore, just because you can see them all online later, and while you're there, I think time is best spent connecting with people. Like GDC is something where every game developer goes to, so there's you can have like a lunch and coffee and drink with like everyone, like a different person, and you still have so many people to talk to, and just it's impossible to talk to everyone at GDC, so I try to spend my time just connecting with people. Outside of GDC, Full Indie Summit is fantastic up in Vancouver. It's just a quick drive up north, and a great community up there as well.
Do you currently have any ongoing game projects that you're working on?
I do.
That you can talk about?
I can talk about them. I've been kind of toying with the notion, very seriously now that I'm doing it, of turning Quantum, my company, into a publisher as well as a developer. And so I've been working on publishing a game that's it's called Almost There. It's going to come out early next year. It's kind of like Super Meat Boy meets Thomas Was Alone. Super Meat Boy like gameplay, Thomas like graphics and presentation. It's very, very fun, and I'm launching it early next year. As for a project that I'm designing, I'm working on a experimental musical bullet hell, where every 60-second stage in the game has a different composer doing their style of music, basically going and asking like Disaster Piece and Grant Kirkhope and Chipzel to all do 60 seconds of their representative music, and I put that in the game. Completely different graphics and gameplay for every stage, that's an ambitious thing that I only realized after making the game, but that's what I'm doing, and it's pretty fun. It's a kind of quick little arcadey game that's stupid hard.
What does your workflow look like? What programs do you use to game dev?
Well, as an engineer, I use Visual Studio and Unity, and Gmail. As a producer, like nice. Nowadays I'm in Gmail more than I'm in Visual Studio probably.
Well, that kind of sucks in a way.
No, I like being a producer. I like
gotcha.
I like talking to people. I like doing what I do because I like it. If nice. I didn't, I'd have to hire someone out to be a producer, but I like being a producer. I like having a lot of different things going on. Mm-hmm. That way I never get bored. Yeah. If I'm just doing one thing forever, like 40 hours a week of just this one thing, I will lose my mind. And that's kind of what I did at Microsoft. And that's why while at Microsoft I was making games on my own, so I could have that kind of different thing. And now that I'm doing it 100% on my own, I can't just do the same thing. I've got to, if that means working on multiple projects, which I'm doing, or just kind of wearing different hats, like being an artist one day, or a producer the next day, or an engineer the next day. I'm constantly switching around so I don't lose my mind with boredom.
How do you handle deadlines for yourself?
I try not to set them anymore. With Tumblestone, we had an enormous, big, scary deadline where Microsoft said you're launching on July 16th. So we said, yes, Microsoft, we're launching on July 16th. And that almost killed us. That I worked 100-hour weeks for months. It was the most unhealthy I've ever been. Never do that. As a word of advice, I will look into the camera and say, never do that. Now I'm never letting myself do that. I'm making sure I get 8.5 hours of sleep. I'm just prioritizing social life when I can. And yeah, and so no, I don't really set deadlines. There's never going to be an absolute necessity for deadline for me anymore. And I realize I'm saying that totally from a point of privilege where I've had successful games, and so I can kind of chill out. But like, I guess no amount of money should ever be worth like losing your sanity. Even if Microsoft offers you a large amount of money to like launch on a particular date, it's ask them to delay it by a few months or something, and then maybe they will. I should have done that. Anyway, the amount we got paid for the game, it was a scary thing to ask for an extension. If they had said no, or be like, well, maybe we'll find another game to fill the slot or something, then like we lose. Yeah. So it was tough, but we did it. We made it work, but it was a very unhealthy situation.
Do you have any advice for inspiring developers?
Don't be so ambitious with game design. And I see this not just with my younger version of myself, but with a lot of people starting out. They're like, I want to make the next Skyrim. I'm using Unity, so it should be fine. A lot of people have way overscoped their projects. You see this in game jams all the time. You see this just in people's first projects where there will be pitching like the project. It's also like so overscoped that like they need to cut 95% of it to have anything that's even remotely viable. And I guess you have to fail once or twice to figure that out. But like if I could like really tell people like start off with like something this scale of like Pac-Man or Tetris or smaller if you've never made a game before, because making something overscoped is a great way to fail. Keep your team size small. It becomes quadratically difficult to manage as you add people onto the project. Expect to fail. Like I had 7 years worth of failures before I created the bridge, so expect not necessarily 7 years, but expect that your first thing you ever work on to not like make $1 million. That's pretty unreasonable. Just expect failure and learn from it, and be like, okay, what did I do wrong? Why don't people like this game? And just don't repeat that in the future. And when you play games, pick apart all the things that you don't like about it. Like, why don't you like doing this thing in another game that you're playing, an indie game, but don't do that in your game, and just kind of learn from other people's failures, or just not necessarily failures, but things that you don't like about their game. Just come to the Seattle Indies events and network. Go to GDC. I know it can be a cost to incur, but it's one of the best events. Just get out there, join online communities. Like there's plenty of like Facebook and Reddit and Discord groups or whatever for game development. Just be active. It's not super helpful just to create a game in isolation without ever talking about the game. And on that note, on the note of like getting out there, just never shut up about your game. With Tumblestone, we demoed it 50 different places. We never shut up about it. I was constantly wearing the Tumblestone shirt, like being on brand. Like, yeah, don't be afraid to speak so highly about your game that you're working on. A lot of people might have like the ego reservation of like, oh, I don't want to brag or anything, but like you should talk about your game projects like a proud father talking about their child getting a PhD. Like you should be always bragging about your game and never shut up about your game.
That's great.